Hey guys, it's Renee here from reneelee.net, your Soul Purpose Success Mentor. Today I want to talk to you about fear and how fear is really no joke to an entrepreneur. And I want to share with you more tips on how to shift yourself out of scarcity and move beyond the fear. Okay, not just out of it, but beyond the fear. So here's what I want to share with you today. There's three things. One, I want to go over what fear really is. Then I want to share with you when fear shows up in your life, in your business, and then how to move beyond it. And there is something really key when I get to number three, how to move beyond the fear. There's something that's really, really key, and it may not be what you think the tip might be. So stay tuned for that. But first I want to say that this was inspired by somebody in our Facebook group, Melissa, who commented on one of my posts and my prompts, and she said that she had been really second guessing herself with everything in her business right now, and like she knew all of the steps, right? Like from in her mind, she understood that the universal law says that you can't attract success and clients when you are sitting in fear. So she's been working actively to shift herself out of that. She's been working with stillness and meditating. And so she gets it, right? She really gets that sitting in fear and scarcity does not serve her well. And I think a lot of you also understand that. So how do you shift yourself out of it when you are it's almost like a battle. Like I want to say battle, right? Like you're kind of battling. You know you're not supposed to be in fear, but then how do you shift yourself out of it for long, long stretches of time, right? So this was the real issue with Melissa, which is that soon after she shifted out into stillness, the fear crept back in. And she kept second guessing herself. So I'm going to offer you some tips on how to really anchor yourself on the other side of the fear. Now, fear, I guess we should spend a little time talking about what it really does to you, right? So for Melissa, it had her second guessing herself. Now, everybody may have a different MO. Everyone may have a different reaction to fear. Whatever that reaction is, though, is usually like a recurring pattern. Like this is how you always act when fear shows up in your life and your business. So for Melissa, it was second guessing. For other people, it could be, getting really stressed out and then taking two steps back once they get hit with the fear. So in Melissa's comment, what I was getting was that she's not taking steps back, but she's kind of just like, stuck in one place, right? Now, taking steps back is certainly an option. It's not an option that I would recommend. Taking a step back is getting yourself out of the fear, but it's not moving beyond it. So I'm going to give you tips on how to move beyond the fear. But how fear, or what fear creates in an entrepreneur's life is no joke, right? It could get to the point where the entrepreneur, you can hit the brakes, pause, or quit. Or even quit, right? It can have you doubting yourself, doubting your services, doubting your pricing, and all of that can drive you crazy, right? I'm sure you guys can relate. It can totally drive you crazy and drive you to quit. And that is not what we want. So let's really look at fear. From a spirit perspective, fear is simply a divine threshold. Okay, so this was actually articulated by Spirit couple of years back in one of my channelings. It's still on my old blog. And fear is a divine threshold, right? So on the other side of this threshold, once you're able to move beyond the fear, what happens is you take your power back. It's kind of like a soul retrieval process, if you're familiar with that shamanic process. It's like a soul retrieval, right? It's an aspect of your power that you lost probably a long time ago in childhood. And you get to own it back once you walk through the divine threshold, once you get on the other side of the fear. When you are unable to move through the fear, you've given that power is with the fear. The fear has power over you and you're the victim of it, right? When you move past it and you actually walk through the divine threshold, you get more of your power back. you go into alignment with your soul's purpose in a new, deeper way. You are ushered more spirit guidance because you said yes to whatever that spirit nudges, to whatever, that action in your business is. You've said yes to stepping out. You've said yes to your deeper alignment with your blueprint. And so more guidance will come in to support you and then offer you the very next step. Okay? So more clarity, more next steps from spirit is offered you once you reach that or go beyond that divine threshold, that fear, and claim your power. So that's, from spirit's perspective, that's what fear is. It's simply these gateways to give you more of yourself back so you become whole, you become complete, so that you can perform your soul's purpose on this earth, right? In order for you to really fulfill your soul's purpose, you've got to be the you, the real you, the full, complete you, the you in your fullest power. You've got to be that in order to complete the soul's purpose that you set out to do. And so these fears, divine thresholds, are tools, right? They're tools along your journey to help you give your power back, the power that you've lost. So embrace it. That's the whole point here. So now that you know what fear is, embrace it. Now, I also understand it can be super uncomfortable. Totally, totally uncomfortable. I remember I had a client one time. She was a medical intuitive, and she was scared to death of telling her father that she was a medical intuitive. And so here's how it hit her, right? Once we started talking about speaking her truth to her father, to her family, her chest tightened up, her throat tightened up. So on a physical level, it was very real, the fear, right? Like tight here. And then her energy dropped. Her voice went completely monotone. And her mind checked out. So it was like this triple whammy. On a physical level, there was this tightening. On an energetic level, there was a drop. On a mental level, she checked out. And so for her, she was not ready. She was not ready to move beyond that fear, not on that phone conversation anyway, right? For some of you, you're just kind of on the fence, and it may not take you much to kind of shift and go over the fence or through the divine threshold. And for some of you, it may require more healing, more time, because you're just not that close to being on that fence, right? Or at that divine threshold. So this is... I'm kind of losing my thought here. Let me get back to my notes. So that's how fear can really paralyze you. Do you know what I mean? Like fear, this is why I say fear is no joke. It can paralyze you, and it can really make you just stop and quit. And that is not of service to you or your soul clients, right? So how do we move beyond the fear? A lot of times spiritual teachers will say fear, the opposite of fear is love. And on a very macro level, completely true, right? Opposite of fear is love. But on a micro level, when we're talking about practical things you can do to shift out of fear in your day-to-day, right? So on a micro level, what is the opposite of fear? For me, the opposite of fear is action. It's action, because action is movement. And if you really think about it, this is what I share. This is part of my core teaching in the free challenge that I offer. If you really think about it, fear keeps you stuck. Like I said earlier with my client, it can paralyze you, right? It can hit you on a physical level. It can drop your energy and your mind can check out. It can completely paralyze you and make you stop. And so if fear is being paralyzed and being stuck, the opposite of that is movement, right? The opposite of stuck is movement. And so if stuck is fear, movement is action. So what kind of actions can you take? I'm a big advocate of taking action in your business, right? I'm a big advocate of doing the very thing that you're scared to death of, especially those dreaded firsts. Every first is going to be, super scary, right? but it doesn't matter. The first never matters. I talked about this in my challenge as well, the dreaded first. You just got to do it because it doesn't have to be perfect. You just got to get that first thing done. But if you can't take that action in your business right away, like I was saying earlier, if you're not kind of on that fence, but you're kind of far away from the fence, then the other type of action you can take to get yourself out of that energy of fear, to get yourself, to not be stuck or paralyzed, is to take physical action, right? So there's action in your business, which I think is amazing, and I think it will help you to like pop that fear and really go beyond it and propel beyond that threshold. And then there's physical action, okay? So for those of you that are like, I can't get myself on that stage, like I am just, wrought with fear. If you can't get yourself to do that Facebook Live video, or if you can't get yourself to even write your first newsletter, right? And this is something that I started to see recently, this big fear of just even putting a newsletter out there. If you find yourself in a place where it's like, I just can't, but I don't like feeling this way, and I want to move beyond it, and I want to take baby steps towards it, then physical action is actually good, right? Again, movement is the opposite of fear. You want to shift out of fear, then you start to move. What do I mean by physical action? Well, you can certainly like stretch, go out for a jog. In an earlier video, I think a couple of weeks ago, or maybe a month ago, I did a video about releasing tension by shaking out your wrist, right? So as a runner, I used to be a runner. I did a half marathon and a full marathon. And during the training, my coach used to say, if your body starts to get tight, loosen your wrist and your body will follow. So physical action is great because you remember fear can be felt on a very physical level. Like with my last client, her chest tightened up. And for you, it could be the neck, right? So maybe just kind of stretching your neck will help. So you can approach fear on different levels. You can approach it on a physical level, right? So figure out where the fear is being held in your body, and then work to soothe, stretch, and love that part of the body, and then your mind will follow. You could also go from the mental route, right? So you can actually talk yourself out of the fear by using affirmations, like I am worthy and this is completely safe. You are safe, right? And you're loved and you have so much to offer, so you can talk yourself out of the fear. So that's from a mental approach. I think the physical approach is really great and really helpful. It also is fine, I think, to distract yourself out of the fear. So anything you can do to like jump out of that energy of stuck, right? Because then you don't want to move. You're just scared to death. To write your book, for example, right? And so physical action is great. It will also allow in more inspiration, and it can also help you to release. So another story I like to share is around anger, right? Like when you're angry, just think back to like the last few times you were really angry. Sometimes if it's too much, you're just like, I got to get out of here and go for a walk. Why? Because walking helps to release the anger. Movement is so key for our healing. So you could dance. Dancing is a great form of healing, and it can certainly shift you out of fear, right? So there's again, 3 ways to get you to shift out of fear, and they're all actions. One is business action. Do the very thing that you're scared of. Just do it. Whatever that dreaded first is, just do it. And I think that's my number 1 tip. 2, you could do it on a physical level, right? So you can shake your wrist out, you can go for a jog, you can start stretching whatever body part is being impacted by the fear, okay? And it could even be just like tension in the jaw, it could be the neck, it could be shaking your wrist out. You can just stretch, do yoga, get out of that energy. The longer you stay in the energy of fear and second guessing yourself, the more you're going to downward spiral. So shift, right? So physical movement is also great. That's number 2. And then number 3 is to simply talk yourself out of the fear. So you can use affirmations. But if you do all 3, that would be amazing, right? If you do all 3, you would be just propelling yourself out of that energy and moving into a brand new way of being, especially when you take that direct action and do the very thing in your business that you're scared to do. And then when you get on the other side, a lot of times you'll be like, oh, it wasn't that bad. It wasn't that bad. The fear is more scary than the action itself. So that is my share for today. Just to really quickly recap, fear is completely no joke. Do not let fear own you, because if it does, you'll get to this point where you may want to just completely stop or quit, or you'll be in the same place you are for years, right? Pretending that you want to move forward in your business when really an aspect of you does not want to move forward in your business. And that's just a waste of time, energy, and resources. You don't want that. So tips on how to get out of fear, to actually move beyond it, knowing that fear is a divine threshold, knowing that on the other side of fear, you're going to get more of your power back. And this is the journey to self-mastery. Like, this is the journey. We talk about self-ascension and self-mastery. There is no self-mastery unless you walk over that divine threshold, which is fear. There is no self-mastery or self-ascension if you can't get through your fears and master your fear and regain your power, right? So business action, do the darn thing. Just do it. Physical action, stretch your body and your mind will follow. Go out jogging, release the tension in your wrists, jog. And then mental action, which is just talking to yourself out of the fear, using affirmations and so forth. So those are the 3 tips. Do all 3. Put in the comments what you think about this video and the tips that I've shared. Tell me what your experiences have been when you actually move beyond the fear. If you have questions, put it down below. Check out my website, reneelee.net. Check out my free challenge called Speak Your Truth and Live Your Purpose. I'll put the link below as well. And thank you for being here. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for being committed to your soul purpose. I honor you and I honor your light. Namaste.